How's it going, everybody? This is Cameron White with White Light Astrology, giving you guys your August 2019 horoscope for Aries, Sun, and Rising. Thank you guys so much for being here and liking and sharing and commenting and subscribing. I love and appreciate every single one of you guys. We are ending July and starting August off with the new moon in Leo and Mercury stationing direct. And at this time, we're going to be having both the Sun, or not both, but the Sun, Mars, and Venus all in Leo. And with this new moon in Leo, it's kind of like, having a fresher start, a more exciting beginning into August. Now, this is the first lunation that we have that isn't an eclipse, so it's not going to be as intense as the past two lunations have been. But for you guys, this is happening in your fifth house. Now, we're already having the Sun, Venus, and Mars in your fifth house in Leo, but as we have this new moon, I think this is an important time to really give yourself an opportunity to really go, hey, what do I really want to set more intentions towards? Where do I need to take back more of my power and take back more of my, pride when it comes to your actions and where you're valuing, or what you're valuing, I should say. And with this happening in your fifth house, this has a lot to do with, what do you want? The fifth house has things to do with, of course, love and sex and children and art and creation. But the fifth house is also an extension of the first house. It's, what makes you you. And as we have Mars and Venus right here during this new moon, I think this is an exciting time to really push out or start a new agenda when it comes to this area, whether that's through relationships and romance, or, maybe you have more focus on your kids, or do you just want to start taking more action on the things that you want to do? But also on August 1st, that's when we're going to have Mercury stationing direct in Cancer in your fourth house. Now, as Mercury's been retrograde in your fifth house and you've been kind of rethinking and kind of seeing things different of how you identify and where you really want to put yourself into, as Mercury goes direct in Cancer in your fourth house, I think this is about realizing where you need to ground yourself a little bit more and what you need to focus on when it comes to the necessities that, kind of need to be expressed. This is Mercury. This is about communication. So this is also a good time to really reach out to family members maybe that you haven't spoken to and, nurture that relationship a little bit more. But then as we move about 10 days later on August 11th, that's when we're going to have Mercury go back into Leo. Now, as Mercury stationed retrograde in Leo, it was kind of like, this flare up of, wanting to do stuff, wanting to pursue things and, having the drive to do it, but maybe not having all of the smaller details planned together for it. And as Mercury goes back into Leo, I think this is going to be taking on this challenge once again, but with a healthier mindset and a lot more positive attitude. Now that you've kind of gone through the challenges, have worked through it, you can apply the lessons that you've learned through this. Also on August 11th, that's when we're going to have Jupiter station direct, and this is also extremely positive. Because as for a long time, we've had Jupiter retrograding, and Jupiter, when it first entered Sagittarius, was creating all of this room and expansiveness around our beliefs and what we think and how that's shaping our direction. And as Jupiter went retrograde, this was kind of like helping us think critically more and, get more deep inside about our thoughts and beliefs about these things. And now as Jupiter's moving direct, this is where you're going to start to see Jupiter's energy a lot more present. Jupiter is the greater benefic. It likes to give. It likes to have abundance of. It's very fortunate, and it's also very philosophical. It's very deep. Now, Jupiter is transiting your ninth house, and the ninth house is all about your spirituality, religion, higher thinking, higher education, long distance travel, foreign languages, and foreign cultures. So while Jupiter's going direct in your ninth house, this is where you're going to start seeing a little bit more expansiveness around this area. And I also think that not only will this be more of a positive aspect and a more of a positive transit, while Jupiter stations direct, this is going to bring more of an influence and more of a pull towards that area for you guys. Then on August 14th, that is when we're going to have Venus conjoining the Sun and going Cazimi. Now, Venus is at its farthest away from us. It's on the other side of the Sun. And as Venus conjoins the Sun, this is kind of like getting purified by fire. And this is the sign of Leo. This is about what, we need that attention. We need that validation. We need to be seen, and we need to be able to express those things. And as Venus is the planet of value and connection and love and trying to bring things together in this harmonious way, while Venus is conjoining in the Sun, I think this is a really positive time to really look at what you can create and what it is that inspires you to be, the expressive, solar qualities that you have. Now, this is happening in your 5th house, so this does have to do with love and sex and kids and all of your hobbies and whatnot. So this is a fun house. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to be super specific with those things. However, it can be very literal. What the thing is I want you guys to focus on with the sun conjoin, or with Venus conjoining the sun in your 5th house, is kind of like being open to a bigger opportunity to be more expressive and more in line with yourself and who you are. I think Venus is bringing a lot more of texture and value and, what can be seen here. And then the next day on August 15th, that is when we're having the full moon in Aquarius, and this is happening in your 11th house. Now, this is also another great lunation because we've had the eclipses in Leo and Aquarius for a long time. The Cancer, Capricorn, Aquarius eclipses that we just had were the first set of eclipses that we got that were just in those signs, and now we finally get full moons and new moons in Aquarius and Leo without that nodal energy there. So this is going to be a little bit refreshing. We haven't had this in a while. But this full moon in Aquarius is happening in your 11th house of friendships, of connections, humanitarian ideals. This also imports career implications because the midheaven can also be around that area or in Aquarius for you guys. But this full moon, I think, is realizing what establishments and what connections need to be made through your networks, through the people that you have around you. Kind of like, maybe indulging more with your friends and connecting more to a group of people that you better identify with. But also on August 15th, that is when we have Mercury finally leave its shadow and it finally starts to move forward into new territory. And I think this is when we get to the point of finally wrapping up what everything that Mercury retrograde brought to us and what June and July really looked like for us. So as Mercury moves forward throughout the rest of Leo, this is a lot more creative, a lot more open, a lot more of a fresh writing style. Like, you don't have writer's block with Mercury leaving shadow anymore. You can finally start thinking in a little bit more creative and different ways. And then on August 18th, that's when we're going to have Mars enter Virgo. Now, Mars has been in Leo in your 5th house, charging up that area. Mars is a malefic, so this can cause some problems like frustration, anger. You can be wanting to go, and it could just be, frustrating to go in that direction. As Mars enters Virgo and goes into your 6th house, this is where things are going to start to get ramped up a little bit more in that 6th house area for you guys. And that's all about your work, your everyday routine, your schedule, your health. What does it look like? What is your employment like? That's why the 6th house also rules like, your day-to-day schedule. Like, what are you literally doing every single day? And as Mars, the planet of our action, our intentions, our drive, how we can better align ourselves with, actually doing and being capable of. Mars is in Virgo now, where you can start to be a little bit more specific where you're with your actions. Not necessarily so much, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, but being more precise and more acute with how you're making your decisions and how you're going about the actions that you choose to do. And this looks like cleaning up your schedule, maybe focusing a little bit more on your health, staying busy, staying productive, and this is going to be really positive for you guys. But then about 3 days later, on August 21st, that's when we have Venus enter Virgo, and this is the same idea. Now that Venus is fresh from its conjunction with the sun, Venus is now bringing more value, bringing more connection, and just seeing more satisfaction in that 6th house area. And this is Venus in Virgo. This is attention to detail. This is valuing the specifics, crossing your T's and dotting your I's, but doing it in calligraphy. You know what I mean? And as Venus goes through your 6th house, and this is about, again, your work, your schedule, your health, your habits, what are you doing every single day? What is your service to this world? While both Mars and Venus are in Virgo, I think this is just going to be a time to really look at these, pay attention to detail in this area. Where can you better improve yourself, and where are you starting to see more value in this area? Are you learning something new, and are you applying that into your day-to-day habits and into your routine? And then 2 days later, on August 23rd, we have the Sun enter Virgo. So now we got all of this huge switch from your 5th house to your 6th house. And one thing I wanted to mention is the 5th house is like the creative idea, and the 6th house is the application of. So while we have the Sun moving from Leo into Virgo, this is really changing the tune over to, more of, not so much, thinking about it and writing it all down. This is more of, handling it, taking care of it, actually applying it and doing it. So as the Sun goes into Virgo, this just brings more of an emphasis and more of a light and more of a gravity around that area for you. Then on August 24th, that is when we're going to have Venus and Mars conjoin each other. And, you know, the reason I'm talking about this is because I think this is going to add a very specific flavor to this transit, or to both of these transits. And as Venus is starting to come up to Mars, Venus is kind of like bringing more tender, bringing more care, bringing more, fun and liveliness to things. Venus is trying to have a good time. And even though Venus is in fall in Virgo, it's not that she doesn't operate correctly, it's that Venus can kind of get over attentive to details. Venus can get a little bit exhausted with it and not be having as much fun. And I think as Venus conjoins Mars, while Mars is really focused on hammering everything, I think Venus conjoining Mars is like, hey, you know, we don't have to go this hard. We don't have to point out all of these tiny little details and make everything perfect. We just need it to, you know, run smoothly and operate correctly. Venus conjoining Mars is also bringing a little bit more softness with your actions. Not everything has to be calculated like a computer, you know. You also can bring in other people's ideas and other feelings involved into your situation. So while Venus does conjoin Mars, I think this is just kind of like really looking at what you're doing, but why you're doing it, and what value you're actually getting out of it. And then on August 29th, as if you couldn't get enough Virgo energy going on, we have Mercury entering Virgo. And now that Mercury was in Leo for a while, and that was like, well, even though you were applying and doing, Mercury in Leo was having fun, being excited about it, seeing the grandeur of things. While Mercury goes into Virgo and goes into your 6th house, this is kind of like more sliding down that scale of getting into, again, application, doing things, getting putting attention to detail, being specific, and getting that schedule down. Mars in Virgo can be very much like, you know, you could have problems with the tiny details. It's kind of like if you try to build a computer and it's all fine, and then all of a sudden, you know, one wire isn't connected the right way, so it messes up everything else. That's like Mars in Virgo problems. Mercury going into Virgo is kind of like being able to have the mentality and the mental energy to fix that problem and to get into the tiny details and to work things out. This is going to be a better time to be expressive and to be more clear with how you communicate. And while Mercury is in Virgo, I think this is helping you get more scheduled in with your day-to-day habits. Rather than Mars and Venus is kind of like doing and having fun, Mercury in Virgo is like actually writing it down in your planner. And then we end August off on August 30th with the new moon in Virgo, as if you couldn't get enough Virgo. So while the new moon's happening, while Mars, Venus, Mercury, and the sun are all there, this is really going like, you know, I've figured out what I've wanted. I got that all clear, figured out what I needed. I was able to write that and figure it out. Now that everything's in Virgo, it's time to start laying new ground down. It's time to start doing something different. It's time to start executing properly. We went through a lot of shit last month, and this month is a lot more positive, but it is about realizing what you want to do and actually doing it. But it's up to you to do that. But I probably shouldn't even have to say that. You guys are Aries risings or suns. You guys are probably going to do it anyway. But that's what I got for you guys. So thank you guys so much for being here and liking and sharing and commenting and subscribing. I love and appreciate you guys so much, and I'll be seeing you next month.